first, the police thought that the assassins would be a gang, but when Annie Chapman was murdered, they had figured out that the killer was a lone assassin. The way he killed the people was really fascinating. The police were convinced that the killer was a person that is an expert in surgery and cutting body parts.
There is now more than 100 of Jack the Ripper's suspects. Each year, many books come out claiming that they have managed to crack the case and solve this murder mystery, but nearly most of them are tend to twist the facts that fit into the theory.
Joseph Archer was known as the French Jack the Ripper or the Southeast Jack the Ripper, as he is known to have killed 11 people. Some say he had killed 27 people or more. His trademark was a rabbit fur hat and his accordion.
His life was terrible, even for a serial killer. Joseph Archer, the 15th child of a farmer, attempted suicide 2 times, which both failed. This caused one side of his face to be paralyzed. He started murdering at the age of 25, stabbing victims repeatedly, often removing organs and raping them.
On the 24th of April in 1891, Carrie Brown, a prostitute, was murdered in New York. The people thought that was Jack the Ripper because she was all slashed up, but she was murdered in a hotel and the knife was left behind.
In 1891, in New York, were found 2 dead and mutilated prostitutes. Some people thought that Jack the Ripper moved in America. In fact, an investigator found out that it was actually Jack the Ripper. The principal suspect was James Kelly, who moved from London to New York in 1890.
In 1890, James Kelly arrived in New York and changed his name to John Miller. Shortly after he arrived, a newspaper received a letter from someone claiming to be Jack the Ripper. From 1891 to 1895, Kelly traveled America. Wherever he went, mutilation, murders followed. Although neither the London serial killer nor the New York murderer was ever captured, the evidence showed that they were probably the same person, and that person was James Kelly.
In 1883, James Kelly knifed his wife to death and was sent to Broadmoor Lunatic Asylum. He escaped from there in 1888, and the Ripper killings followed shortly after.
According to the forensic scientists, Jack the Ripper was single, right-handed, and had a regular job because he killed on weekends. He had a medical experience and probably was mentally ill because he killed for trophies. According to the witnesses, he had a deerstalker hat, coat, and was about 1.7 meters tall. He was about 30 years old.
The number of Jack the Ripper suspects now runs to well over 100, but I will tell you the most famous suspects. Prince Albert Victor is one of the most famous suspects. Some authors have argued that he was a serial killer to cover up his illegitimate child. But modern documents show that he could not have been in London at the time of the murders. Thomas Catbush was named as Jack the Ripper in a series of articles appeared in the Sun newspaper. There was a lot of details, but they never named him. Recently, people have suspected Barnett Moore, Joseph Barnett. This is because he had a medical background.
More than 500 people have been suspected to be the serial killer Jack the Ripper. Most of them do not have a significant amount of reliable evidence to prove them to be Jack the Ripper. However, there is really no evidence that can reveal the identity of the killer. This is one of the most famous suspects.
Prince Albert, the grandson of Queen Victoria, because there were rumors of Albert being mildly retiring and having a manner of death. Many believed he was Jack the Ripper. However, there are controversial documents that show that he was not in England at that time. According to the FBI psychological profile of Jack the Ripper, he was white male, aged 28 to 36, and lived or worked in Whitechapel.
Karl Feigenbaum was born around the year 1840 in Karlsruhe in Germany. He traveled around the US and Europe. He was executed by the electric chair on the 1st September 1894 in New York because he killed a woman. He could be Jack the Ripper.
he could be Jack the Ripper because he killed at least 10 women in the US and in Europe. Lots of them were prostitutes, like Jack the Ripper did it. He was a psycho because he said before his execution that he has the passion to kill and mutilate every woman who falls in his way. Nobody knows where he was during the murders in London.